this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for this devotional. Today we're in Proverbs chapter 6. I'm going to look at verses 20 through 22. Here's what Solomon says next to his son. He says, "My son, keep your father's commandment and forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always. Tie them around your neck, and when you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you, and when you awake, they will talk with you." Okay, so when I read this section of Proverbs 6, my first thought as a father was, yeah, son, listen to me. And by the way, your mother as well. It was this small sense of a self-righteous attitude from within me that proclaimed, I know things that you don't because I'm older, I have more experience and more wisdom than you, which, by the way, is true, son. But then I caught myself. I realized that making this assertion depended on what kind of wisdom I had. It was dependent on my source of truth and how effectively I lived by that truth, by the way, and the spirit by which I conveyed that truth. And then all of a sudden I was overwhelmed. And then I remembered that some of us out there lacked the presence of a father like I did. That maybe we never gained any wisdom from our biological dads. Or maybe we had a father who was present, but he failed to live a life that was actually worth emulating. He lacked that godly wisdom that would equip us to walk and lead effectively, as Solomon infers here. But while these thoughts sound so heavy and the cycle sounds so defeating, I kept coming back to one word in this text. It was the word commandment. You see, everything Solomon says here hangs on the weight and the assumption of that one word, right? And while it appears that wisdom depends on what a father says and how he lives it, it actually doesn't. You see, truth stands on its own. The commandments and teachings that Solomon is passing on are not his to own. Truth and wisdom actually belong to God, which is all assumed here. All Solomon needs to do is to accept God's truth and live by God's truth and then pass it on to his son. And here he invites his son to accept that truth and to live by it as well. So the good news is this, fellas. God's commandments are effective in every generation. They break the bonds of generational shortcomings and sin. His truth will triumph over our father's sin and our sin. And the way this wisdom endures is, well, we accept it as men over our truth. And then we live by it. And finally, we pass it on to others, especially our own children and our sons. So, gentlemen and son, join me in living a wise life. But it ain't my wisdom, and it ain't my commandments, and it ain't my teachings. It's God's. And let him prevail through you from just one generation to the next. I love you guys. Thanks for joining me here today. Share this with someone you know. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe. Leave a comment for me if you like below, and I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.